This is the Biblical Agnostic. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. The topic today is, do pastors really speak to God? Let's talk about it. Biblical Agnostic here with another video. Today's topic is, do preachers talk to God? And the ultimate question is, why would you believe that they do? Let's get right into the topic. You know, as a young man growing up in the church, in the Christian church, I would always run across people who claim to be a prophet or a prophetess, those who speak to God. And I always wanted to be one of those type of individuals who could actually hear the voice of God. I would always listen to lectures and try to read books about hearing the voice of God. I wanted to be a prophet. I wanted to know what happens before it happens. Just like Jesus, just like the apostles, just like the prophets of the Old Testament, the Isaiahs and the Jeremiahs, I wanted God to have a word to give to me so that I can give to others. In fact, we can say that much of the Bible, much of any religious text, depends on one huge presupposition. Really two. The first one is obvious. The presupposition that God does indeed exist, which is something that no one knows. Even the Bible itself says no man has seen God at any time. Then it goes on to say that the Son of Man has declared him. Many people, for some reason, look at that verse and say something that it's not saying. They seem to think that that verse is indicating that Jesus or Yeshua or Yahushua, however you want to say the name, actually talked to God. And it did not say that. It just said that he was being declared. Now, we can argue all day about the biblical text. To me, that's not important for this conversation. But again, one has to presuppose that God exists, although no one has seen God, depending on what your interpretation of the Bible is. People say seeing God directly or fully. People have only seen God partially. Take from that what you may. But it's very clear that there's no pictures or photos or recordings of a so-called God of any sort, of any religion. That's the first presumption. You have to presume that God exists in the form or is speaking through this particular religion. Huge presumption. Because if God does exist, who's to say that he's speaking at all, let alone to your particular religious viewpoints or ideas, philosophies, dogmatism, you name it? Who's to say that? That's a great question, of course. But again, we won't belabor that much here. That's not the purpose of this conversation. So again, the first presupposition is that there is a God that exists. A corollary to that is that this particular God is your particular God of your particular religion that's saying particular things to you or to someone you venerate. And therein is the meat of the topic. Because that presumption, you have to presume that this person that you're talking to, hearing from, seeing, that's above you on the podium, and you're looking up, your favorite pastor, so-called prophet or teacher, whatever religious organization that you're in, whether it be Christianity or any of the various religions out there in the world, you have to believe that there is someone that is so special that God speaks to them and is speaking to you. By the way, no person has been able to prove that God speaks to them. And the first thing you might say is prophecy. Prophecies are often vague and have the same rate of accuracy as any psychic prediction or anyone of any other religion. Vague ideas that's so vague and so general, and the potential is so high, you're bound to be right. I mean, how much of a stretch is it for me to say that one day you're going to turn on the news and hear about some sort of tragedy involving traffic? It happens often. In the same vein, this is what psychics and prophets claim to know clairvoyantly or by the Spirit or by the fact that their God is speaking to them, or not the fact, but I should say the presumption that their God is speaking to them. None of these things can be proven true. Then someone may say, well, what about Bible prophecy? Well, sorry to inform you, but the Bible has, dates in them. And that was an argument that I used to try to refute. But there are no dates. And even when it says that this is the year of this king or that king, the biblical writings, the prophetic ones, their date of writing after the events, not before them. So someone looking back saying, hey, this is going to happen. Well, what date was this particular text written? Most scholars believe that these texts were written after, but there is absolutely no evidence that would suggest that it was written before the time of the events. But that's not even my point. What I'm trying to get at is that in order for you to believe that God is speaking, God is talking, you have to believe that there's a person hearing from God, if God does indeed exist. And you have to presuppose that this person is, well, special. That this person is beyond normal human beings, touched by God or an angel, that they and only they can hear the voice of God. And this is how all your religious leaders carry on. They are able to convince you quite easily that not only that God exists, which no one knows, which no one has seen, but their God exists, their particular God exists, and their God is speaking specifically to them, and you have to believe the words that they are telling you. And my question is, why would you ever believe that a human being can do the impossible? Why should you ever believe that a human being can hear the voice of God? Why wouldn't you believe that this person is suffering from some sort of hallucination, some sort of illness, or plainly just lying to you? A scam, a scheme. That is more plausible than believing that some man is so special, or woman, that they're so special that they hear from God, but not you. And they're telling you the words of God that you should follow. A God in whom they only know of and that they're only in communication with, no one else. Now, how convenient is that? I'm supposed to believe that you're in communication with an all-powerful deity and that you are so special that this deity is only speaking to you to tell me what to believe, what to think, and how to live. If that sounds ridiculous, well, that's because it is. And many have, including myself, believed that, and some for their entire lives, that someone is so special that they hear from God. But not you. You talking about falling for a scam? That's falling for a scam, hook, line, and sinker. In fact, I don't think there's no greater scam in the world to say, hey, I heard the voice of God, and God told me to tell you to do A, B, C, and D. And usually has something to do with you departing from your money. Yeah, absolutely. You departing from your money is pretty much the number one thing that God has told them, that God hasn't revealed to you. But you are supposed to listen to them because they are the man or woman of God. And you're supposed to believe that, and you do, and you act out accordingly. I find this amazing, that in the human psyche that you can believe something that cannot be proven and more than likely is not true. What makes you the special human being? What makes you better than me? And that's what you have to believe. You have to believe that this person speaking to you, the words and the voice of God, is better than you. I mean, by all means, God selected them for a reason, right? There should be some reason that they were selected, but whatever that reason is, you weren't selected, but you are obligated to listen and follow. What a scam. What a scam. But let's go a step further. if you're gullible enough to believe that this person speaks for God and that God is working through this person, you're gullible enough to believe that. Well, let's go all the way back to the biblical text. Am I to believe that Moses spoke to God? Am I supposed to believe that? Am I supposed to believe that Abraham spoke to God? Am I supposed to believe that anyone spoke to God? The apostles, the prophets, Jesus or Yeshua, I'm supposed to believe that these men were so special that they talked to God. Although no man has seen God at any time, I'm supposed to believe Moses. I'm supposed to believe the text. What about all the other religions that have existed for eons? You're supposed to believe them too? Well, what if it's contradictory? Well, now you have a problem on your hands. Whose version of the truth do you believe? Think about that for a minute. One thing we know for certain is that there is absolutely no evidence for the supernatural claims of any religious book, particularly the Bible. There's not one miracle that has been substantiated. Not one act of God that has been substantiated. But yet I am to believe a story written thousands of years ago. But what about the people of today? Where's our book? Well, the answer to that is simple. You have new religions and new ideas that people follow. Human nature hasn't changed. Even to this day, there are new revelations of God, special people that create whole religions. What about Joseph Smith, I think it was, who was supposed to have received golden tablets or discs to speak of the particular truth of the Mormon God? If I'm not mistaken, I think that was Joseph Smith in the tablets. And I'm supposed to just believe those words. And why? Well, because the person saying the words is charismatic or is something that resonates with me. And I'm supposed to believe in special people for a God that no one can prove that exists or not. You see how deep the rabbit hole goes? You see the assumptions that you have to make these things fit and work? Where's the evidence of a resurrection of Jesus? Where's the evidence of the miracles, the healings? People getting out of their graves. Where is the evidence of that? Where's the evidence of the parting of the Red Sea? Where's the evidence of any God or person that works with a so-called man, or a God that works with a so-called man? Well, I guess I should say so-called God working with a man. But where is the proof of that? Not a shred. So I just have to believe that someone is so special and so much the better than I, that they speak to God and I should listen. And I have to make that presumption whether it is 2,000 years ago for your New Testament, or about 3,500 years ago for your Old Testament, or any religious book. You're just supposed to believe. Just believe. For no apparent or good reason at all. And faith is simply accepting something is true without any evidence. And you can do that with anything. I'm a prophet of the flying spaghetti monster. And I'm here to tell you that he wants you to eat more spaghetti. And if you do not, if you don't eat more spaghetti, you have a little bellyache about once a week. Thus said the flying spaghetti monster. Don't you believe me? Why not? What I just said is just as plausible as any other religion that you may have. Any other God that you may believe in. Did I just make that up? Of course. But so are your religious books. And one thing we know for certain is that these religious books were undoubtedly written by human beings. Now, do you believe their claims and their experiences? Well, that's up to you. My only question is, why should you? Why should you believe those things? And at the end, not trying to change your beliefs, your ideas, your philosophy, your religion. I'm just here to make you think. Like, share, and subscribe. And make sure you do that, or else the flying spaghetti monster is gonna get you. Biblical agnostic, I'm out. A quick addendum to the video that you just saw. Just something to make you think, man. If a man who was obviously homeless, because you smelled him and you know that he smells like homelessness, we know what that smell is like, and he looks like homelessness, and it's apparent that he's suffering from some sort of mental illness, right? If this guy walked up to you and said, hey, I just heard from God. He's telling you to come and follow me. Obviously, we wouldn't follow. But isn't it amazing that all it takes is a guy to get out of his car, a luxury vehicle, with a nice fancy suit on and maybe a nice ring on. So he gets out his car with all of these niceties, looking fresh, smooth, and debonair. And he says, hey, God told me to tell you to come follow me. How quickly we would do that. Same message, but different appearance. And the appearance is all that it takes for you to blindly follow. And the last thing, if you can't question your own thoughts and ideas, if you can't question the Bible, if you can't question the existence of God, if you can't question religions, if you can't question God, if you can't question people, if you're afraid to do those things, if you're afraid to do critical scholarship, if you're afraid to take a critical look at the biblical text or any religious text, if you refuse to do that, if you're afraid to do that, if you say it's blasphemy to do such, if you have fear in asking questions, think about that as a human being. If you have fear of asking questions and being critical, you don't want to ask these questions, and you want to just blow it off as just something arbitrary. When someone says, what's your proof of evidence for God or proof of evidence for your God, and you can't actually talk about it, you're afraid of it, I submit to you that you are in the matrix. And that's what it means to be in the matrix. If you can't question your religion, if your religion can't stand up against scrutiny, then you obviously are a programmed follower. I could go into it, but that's the secret. I don't want to reveal too much. I'm out.